Hi, I'm Jack and I'm a first year PhD student at Cardiff University. I've just finished my master's degree at the University of Leiden doing Assyriology. My project, because I'm in my first year, it's very much in its infancy, so it's about 3.5 months in so far. And yeah, that's where I am at the moment. Yeah.
Congratulations on your master's in Leiden. That must have been quite an experience.
Yeah, it was different considering the circumstances of this year.
I can imagine. And well done on starting your PhD in the time of COVID as well. What are your research interests? We can talk about it more generally, and then we'll talk about your PhD topic specifically.
Yeah, okay, so my research, more genuinely, generally,
And genuinely.
yeah, focuses on body and being in Achaemenid Persia, so it's from about 550 to 330 BC. But that obviously is more of an umbrella term for more specific methodologies and studies in gender studies, philology, linguistics, and really everything that kind of like lays the groundwork for the human experience in that sense, if we're talking about like body studies and experience. So the aim of the research really is to kind of create like I said, like a framework for researching and understanding the Achaemenid body. And of course that is quite a broad topic in general, but because of the nature of Achaemenid research and its limited vocabulary and evidence, it means you can actually you can narrow it down quite well into a study that specifically focuses on elements of the body and experience. But yeah.
It's almost like a history from below of the Achaemenid period.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like it was always like quite a good way of getting into Achaemenid studies because, well, it hasn't really been looked at too much before. And obviously, like you say, it is like a kind of like a grassroots study of the Persian experience in that sense.
Oh, that's fascinating. And what led you to pursue this topic for your PhD?
So yeah, I'd been in discussion with my current supervisor, for quite a while now, actually a few months before I was actually even applying for a PhD at Cardiff. And we were really discussing where, gaps and opportunities lay in Achaemenid scholarship and where I could move to. And what soon became clear is there'd been no real concerted effort to do, holistic study of the Achaemenid body and its representations. So I kind of wanted to jump on that opportunity and produce some work on it. But of course, there've been a few studies into the body in the ancient Near East on the whole. But what tends to happen in studies in the ancient Near East, they tend to become these Sumero-Akkadian studies of the ancient Near East, and cultures like Persia and the Elamites, for example, usually become sidelined, or they try to explain them through a cultural lexicon which is quite foreign and alien to those cultures.
Right.
And so the Achaemenid studies itself ends up getting sidelined as well.
Interesting. So in a way, it sort of tells the story from its own perspective rather than imposing a different.
Exactly. You've explained it better than me.
No, not at all. Not at all. No, I'm just trying to make sure I've understood the topic. That's quite different from my own study, but that's fascinating. And I mean, I know it's still early on, but what has been the main surprises and challenges so far studying ancient Persia?
So, as I kind of mentioned, the evidence is quite limited.
Yes.
Our vocabulary is even more limited because, of course, we're using Old Persian, Pahlavi, and Avestan if we're feeling confident enough, and these are they're not very well attested. But of course, initially it comes across as quite a challenge, and I think unfortunately a lot of people shy away from Achaemenid studies and ancient Persian studies in general because of the lack of evidence and the limited language. But really actually just forces you to become a bit more creative in that sense. Because you've got to start adopting, more investigative methodologies that you can look into in more depth. So that's why my methodologies range from, gender studies to linguistics.
Because it's exciting.
But it's really necessary to like get into those topics because, you have like 800 attested words which you've got to then research, and you've really got to like look into every single word in such detail. So this means like going reading tons of etymological dictionaries. This means, really studying images. Most
Mm,
nights I'll just be scrolling down, um, images of Bisiton or images of Persepolis
mm,
or Zacade, and you'll just be like looking straight down these images, looking at like tiny little minuscule details of certain differences you
mm,
can point out to art in the wider ancient Near East.
sure.
Um,
That's interesting.
yeah,
Yeah, that's
but
nice that you can have that sort of relationship with your study topic, it's quite intimate in a way, isn't
yeah,
it?
it is really intimate.
Mm,
But like I said, you are forced to kind of take that approach
mm,
because you
mm.
can't really do this like overbearing, focus on the entirety of everything that's available to you because not much is available to you.
No, no, of course. And I suppose that leads me to a slightly more, I mean, it's a related question, and that is in terms of field work. I know with COVID it's very difficult, but would you be able to go out to sites, or is it mainly museum pieces that you're looking at? I know, I
Yeah,
don't know if
it's
that's an appropriate question, but
yeah, I
I'm
mean,
curious.
like you say, I can't really go out to visit these sites in person at the moment. And even after COVID, it might be difficult just because of the nature of, visiting Iran in general.
Sure.
But fortunately, one of the other benefits of having quite limited evidence is that you do have quite easy access to all these pieces of evidence online, and they are readily available for you
Great.
to access and read. As long as you're
Mm,
willing to teach yourself Old Persian and put the time in to find these pieces of evidence, you can actually do it. So yeah.
okay. Oh, that's interesting. And what languages do you know? If
Um,
someone wanted to study ancient Persia, what languages would you recommend to them?
well, the first language I always suggest is Old Persian. I feel like it
Old
goes without
Persian.
saying.
Okay. Hmm.
But also a lot of ancient Persian, especially royal inscriptions, were written in multiple languages that were usually trilingual.
Mm,
And so it never does any harm to, learn your Akkadian or learn your Elamite or learn your, even Sumerian, just so you can understand the inscriptions which contain Sumerian logograms a bit better. But
mhm.
I would always start with Old Persian. And of course that spans out into Avestan and then that spans out into like Pahlavi, etc., etc.
Oh, interesting. Thank you. I'm just curious for myself as well, in case I wanted to switch careers. And finally, are you considering staying on in academia? I know it's a bit early because you've just started, but just curious about where you see yourself.
Um, I definitely see academia as an end goal, and whereas eventually I want to arrive. But
Mhm.
I understand that the job market at the moment is quite atrocious for academia. So, but like I say, always be an
Quite.
end goal. It's something I always aspire to do. But whether or not I'll go into academia as soon as I graduate from my PhD is a different question. And whether I'll go into like something like heritage or whether I'll work, in a
Mm.
completely different field for the time being and then find myself somewhere else. But yeah, that's where I will be aiming to go.
Well, thank you, Jack. This was really illuminating. Really appreciate your time. Thanks for sharing, and all the best with the rest of your studies and with your PhD.
Yeah,
I
thank you
look
so much.
forward to hearing more from you soon.
Yeah, and thank you for arranging this and continuing with your project. It's really good and really helpful for everyone like me who's starting out in this project as well.
You're very kind. Thank
Thank you.
you.